So, hello everybody. Welcome to the long overdue riding review of the 2014 BMW S1000r dynamic model. I have attempted to do this 2 times in the past, and both times had some technical issues. One was the fact that the camera is now, since I updated the latest firmware, camera is now default starting in a time-lapse mode, which I have attempted to set back a couple of times to starting in video default mode, but it refuses to believe me that that's what I really want to do. So it keeps coming back to that, and I go out and shoot video and it comes back, and it's crazy, but that's what happened. So that was attempt number 1. Attempt number 2 is I've typically used a chest-mounted GoPro, and what happens is this SW-Motech tank bag, which I really enjoy having and is quite handy, gets right in the way of the review and makes the view forward and a lot of the riding experience a little bit strange. So we're going to try this shoulder mount. I've been fighting not mounting it directly to the helmet. I used to have one stuck on the top of my helmet like a mushroom, and it felt strange, looked strange, and caught wind and things like that. We may have to go back to that. We'll check that out. I have some gimbals we're going to try. We're going to try them again, let me put it that way. So we've got 2 things to do today. Number 1 is we'll take a quick ride around the hood here on the Red Baron, the 2014 BMW S1000r, and I'm going to put some gasoline in the the redoubtable Baron because he's just about dry. So hang with me. We're going to start the ride up in just a moment. Okay, family and friends, we are recording. I've just checked it on the phone here. Going to take the phone out of the preview mode, drop it into my saddlebag, put on my Joe Rocket riding gloves, fire up. Have to say I love the stock exhaust sound on this, and the stock exhaust is also, I think, pretty attractive compared to some others. I know the latest 2018 models with their Euro compliant exhausts are actually pretty ugly. Sorry about that, BMW, but then again, you guys don't necessarily praise aesthetics over function. We can tell by looking at a few of the design aspects on this motorcycle, which we will do. We've got to maintain a pretty low speed through our little neighborhood here. Hope you're getting a good view on my shoulder-mounted cam. Again, this is the 3rd attempt to get this out and running. We don't know if it's going to actually happen or not, but we'll find out. I think the shoulder mount, like the chest mount, what I like about it as opposed to a helmet mount, number 1 is it's not growing off the side of your helmet like a mushroom, and you don't feel the wind resistance and the noise that you get from it. Number 2 is that I believe it's a more steady position. It'll give you a more stable view during the video itself, as opposed to the helmet mounted cams, which I've done, and because you're swiveling your head like you're on a post anyway, just looking around to make sure you're riding safely, the oh, nice of them, left the gate open here, the view can get pretty jittery, and if you try the post video stabilization effects, essentially what it does is it narrows down the frame of view and you get some weird type of effects. So I'm hoping the shoulder mount, like the chest mount, will cancel out some of those movements and at the same time give you a little of a panoramic view forward. There's that quick shifter. Look, Mom, no hands. Pretty nice. So let's get into the review of this machine if we can. Not sure if you're getting as much wind noise as I'm getting on this helmet. I certainly hope not. I do have the windsocks mounted. But I'm going into my 3rd year of ownership on this machine. It's been very reliable. I would say that BMW carries that reliability cachet, and they live up to it for the most part. I don't fear that when I'm out someplace in the middle of middle of someplace, that when I ask the bike to start and take me back to where I started, that it will do so, and it has always done so. That's not to say this machine has not had a couple of episodes that have kept it off the road. The first one is right after I bought it. I bought it used. I bought it was just about a year old, owned by a gentleman in Rancho Santa Fe. Ooh, that's a bad downshift. Owned by a gentleman in Rancho Santa Fe, and according to the dealer, he bought a single R and a double R at the same time, and he parked this in the garage for the better part of a year. When I bought it, it had 400 miles on the odometer. So taking it out, one of the first things I noticed, I rode away from the dealership, one of the first things I noticed was the quick shifter was not working. It defaulted into standard clutch mode shifting, which is just fine, and the bike is still a hoot to ride that way. But what would happen, I called the dealer when I got home and I said, hey, I don't think that quick shifter is working, and the dealer said, well, it could be in learning mode, and it did sit for a year, so give it a few rides and see if the quick shifter will come back. And I did. I had it for the better part of a couple of months, and the quick shifter never did come back. So I took it in, and they had it for a couple, 3 days because they really couldn't figure out why the quick shifter wasn't working. They just didn't have anything in their experience file that said, hey, when this happens, do this. You have to remember the bikes were relatively new back in that time period, and they just didn't have a experience that said, here's what you do when the quick shifter is not working. So they went to some pretty elaborate lengths to get it back, which they did do. They did get it back. One of the things that they did was essentially take the bike electronically back to zero and then restart it up, remind it that it was a 2014, gave it the VIN number again, and I guess they had to do that perhaps more than once. Not sure of the exact technical detail of what they did, but quick shifter came back. Next ownership issue we'll get to as soon as I stop here and put some fuel in this little baby. Okay, we're going to fire her right up again. There we go. We got contact. Now notice that this machine has a gas gauge. Take note, Aprilia. How hard can it be? So there is a gas gauge here, and I filled it up, and the Baron's happy. So we're moving on. Okay, so that's the saga of the quick shifter. They fixed that, and the quick shifter has worked flawlessly ever since. And in fact, I would rate this quick shifter, out of my limited experience, one of the best that I've used, because it's got a very short, precise throw, and it really doesn't leave you in any doubt that you got a gear. So then the next thing of consequence that happened during my ownership was that the brake lever, the front brake lever, would go mushy. And it acted like, just like car brakes sometimes do as an old car racer, when you pump a lot of heat into your brakes, sometimes you can overheat them, and they will not return. They'll not return to their firm state. These are Brembos. These are high-quality Brembos, and that happened about 2 or 3 times. And each time I took it back, they'd bleed it. It'd come back, and these brakes are so good that they're really single finger or dual finger cover, and they'll haul this bike down. Please watch your lane, lady or sir. they'll haul this bike down very handily when they're in normal working condition. So it's a little disconcerting, and you don't know if, like, the situation is that you've got a bigger problem that could rear its head halfway through a ride, or you've got the situation where you're overheating the brakes so you're too hard on them, and I knew that was not the case. So they took a look at them a couple of different times and led them each time, and finally they decided that it wasn't an issue of getting heat into them. They said, the mechanic said, that just doesn't happen with this kind of a motorcycle. So there's a deeper problem at work here. And what they decided it was a porous master cylinder, or perhaps some O-ring in the master cylinder that they could not identify that easily or find or locate, was allowing air into the system over time, because it'd work for a little bit and then we'd get back to that mushy state. Haven't been a manufacturer myself, and knowing O-rings the way that I do, I'm intimately familiar with O-rings. They do have their flaws, and one of them is that you can get a little cut on it and it will, you can't see it, but it will not function like any self-respecting O-ring should. So they changed the master cylinder, and they did this under warranty, and the bike was 2 years old at that time, which forever endears BMW to me, by the way. They changed it under warranty, and it has been back to its usual standards of superbness ever since. You know, and beyond that, I don't have any issues or situations to report on this machine after nearly 3 years that have kept it off the road. So that shiny BMW reliability reputation will rest fairly solid with me. I do believe that this machine is a very reliable, well-engineered machine, and were I to have just one motorcycle, I'd be quite content that it was this one. Okay, I don't want this entire vlog to be about my complaints with the BMW, so we're going to go on to things that I have changed, things that I have done different. First thing I did was to install foldable and fully adjustable brake levers. I do that on almost every machine I have. I find the stock ones, I have relatively small hands, but I do wear a big shoe, but I do have relatively small hands, and I find that the normal levers, the way they, even within their range of adjustability, just won't get comfortable for me. So I've installed the aftermarket brake levers. I'll post what type they are in the video description. Second thing I do is I usually put on a set of grip puppies, they're called, which are a foam outer housing that sits over the standard brake levers and makes it, gives a little more cushion and makes it a little wider diameter, which is friendlier to senior hands. I find this to be much friendlier to senior size hands, and particularly friendlier over a long haul on the road. So having done that has made the hand control setup a little more amenable and a little more attractive. I think those folding levers are a little more attractive in stock, although that's a pretty fine detail. You got to get close to a motorcycle to say, hey, those levers look nice. But the other thing that I changed was the seat. And the seat, as it comes from Beamer for this machine, is pretty narrow and relatively hard. So my old rear end, she sees me. She didn't see me, actually. So my little old rear end has a hard time sitting on a seat like that for 8 hours at a time. Ooh, yep. Baron loves to romp. So did that, changed the seat out, got a Sargent seat, And I'll have to relate an issue. I did buy another brand of seat, and when I got it, it wouldn't fit right. And in my attempts to make it fit right, I really butchered it up. I screwed it up, not anybody else. I have to bear responsibility. So I couldn't return it, and they must have just sent the wrong cross frame with it. I don't know what there any differences are. So I went to the Sergeant, and it's very inexpensive, dropped right in and worked well. And I installed a tank bag, which is just large enough to haul stuff around. If you go out for a ride during the day, you want to toss in a water bottle, at least I do. And that tank bag is just about the right size with the tank ring over the top. The only irritant with that is you have to take the tank bag off before you put fuel in the machine, which adds a little bit of time and complication to doing so, but not objectionable at all. So that is the end of a very short, oh, forgetting another thing. I installed these rear view mirror extensions. I don't know if you can see them that well. I'll try and do a little follow-up and show them to you. I did post a video about installing them on this bike, so you can check that video out. And they really have worked out well. They've taken, normally you get about 75% shoulder and 25% rear view mirror with a lot of standard setups. But these aftermarkets that I put them out, so I've got a very clear back view of who's behind me. Really important. And the interesting, do you see me? Yeah, you see me. The interesting thing is that they don't stick out all that much more. So highly recommend them. Also put this little bubble guy here on the rear view mirror, and that gives you a little 360-degree view around your backside as you're going on. That works well. Details about the motorcycle that I have really enjoyed. Well, I already mentioned the quick shifter. That thing is just really, people could learn from these. Now, the Japanese motorcycle, to my experience, really shift like butter. They just have got the clutch action and everything down very well. I've not tried a Japanese bike with a quick shifter on it, however, so I cannot comment on their quick shifter design. But this quick shifter of those that I have ridden, and I've ridden about 4 of them, is hands down the most precision. Very, very short throw, very precision as it clicks into gear, and you get it, and you know it's there. So that quick shifter is really a delight. It's only up on this model. They didn't go to down until 2017, I think. Might have been 2018. And that is just one of the joys of riding the machine. And it still gives you a chance to do a little rev matching as you go as you go down through the gears, which if you're an old school stick shift car guy, you might enjoy. I know I do. I enjoy doing it. It's fun. It's one of the pleasures of trying to be precision and in control on any machine. So that quick shifter, one of the pluses. The other thing that's really great on this machine from 2014, don't forget, and I believe they actually started on the R model about 2 years earlier, and that is, by the way, here's my little neighborhood, Santa Luz, Sacred Light. Wistful Vistas is down there someplace. So the other thing is the dynamic suspension, dynamic damping control they call it, or DDC. And there are 3 settings for that, soft, normal, and hard. Hard is for track or really a smooth road. I've ridden hard on the roads, but it's pretty tough. It's like the most strongly suspended sport bike you ever sat on. It'll jar you loose. If you've got loose fillings, it's a great way to get rid of them. The road works, most freeways and most highways work great. If you ride on some back roads like I do, then even the road can be a little jarring, because some of those back roads just don't get repair crews going through them, which is why you like the charm that they do have. But the soft is really a revelation. That soft, it soaks up the bumps so well. I'm tempted to ride nearly all the time in soft, but I try to be macho and be cool about that, so I don't ride all the time in soft. Although I am tempted, like I say. A lot of time, by the way, I shifted using my hands. A lot of time I use the clutch at lower speeds because it just feels a little smoother. The bike will kind of hop ahead a little bit, and I don't know how good that is for the clutch rings, dog rings. So that DDC, Dynamic Damping Control System, is awesome. That'd be one of the things. Second thing to mention is the cruise control. Now, when they told me this bike came with cruise control, I had the first thought of, who needs cruise control on a motorcycle? You ride this on the freeway for 2 miles and you'll be very thankful. Cruise control works marvelously well. You can increment it and decrement it. That's a big word for today. In 1 or 2 mile per hour segments. It'll hold the speed, and a motorcycle throttle is generally fairly finely tuned or adjusted. So you're riding down the freeway and you're holding it with a manual throttle, you're going up and down the speed range, probably 2 or 3. Oh, I'm going a little quick here in the shuttle. Slow down, Gare. You're going up and down maybe 5 miles an hour. So you look down, doing 80, look down, doing 75, look down, you're doing 85. And it's hard to hold that steady throttle, but that cruise control works great. And it's notable that Aprilia has it on this year's my year's model, 2017 200. It's really handy. It's really a convenience item. The other thing that turns out to be great, and you're going to laugh if you live back east where you do have a real winter. We don't have a real winter. We have California winter. Girls put on one-piece bathing suits instead of bikinis. So that's our winter. But it does get cool. You can get down, and I rode out to Julian earlier this year, and it got down into the 40s, believe it or not. Now, Julian's about 5,000 feet, I think, so there's an explanation to that. But it got cold, and this has heated grips. There's the heated grips. There's 2 levels. There's really hot and warm, and you put it on that warm, and it is absolutely amazing the difference that warm handles can make to your riding experience on a cold day. I gotta say, it's, quoting President Trump, it's huge. It's huge, and it likes me. So those heated grips turn out to be pretty nice little add-ons. I would say better received, both of those items better received than I thought I would, due to the fact that they are so convenient. And being an old school bike rider, I had looked down my nose at them when I first heard of them and thought, no way is that ever going to be any good. Why would I want to do that? Huh, I'm too good. So they've turned out to be really great. The next item to mention is the suite of electronic settings that you have in this machine. Now, this is the 24 version. They've since come up with some electronic wizardry that allows it to actually be lean angle sensitive. But most of the stuff on the 2014s is still the same, except that it cannot tell, or there is no input to tell it that it is anything other than in the upright position. I have not tested the difference. I'd be very curious to test the difference actually to those, to see which one's really useful and which one is not so. You know, can you notice in lean sensitive, like if you climbed all over the brakes on a turn in the non-lean sensitive model, would it really make a big difference to you? Sorry, I just don't know the answer to that particular question. All right, we're using reverse in the motorcycle, which is me skidding backwards. But you get traction control, you get ABS, you get throttle modulation, in that traction control, and they are all settable. They all turn on or off, and they can all be ranged over a fairly wide setting. Now when I go ride out in some of my old roads back east, I will set them up fairly high because some of those roads do get gravel. I'm going to leave it in the shade here. I'm going to see how this looks in the shade. We're going to set this up upright, shut her down. Some of those roads get pretty gravelly, and you've got to worry a little bit. There's the seat. That's the aftermarket seat, and it's very grippy. So you've got to worry if you hit some gravel that's washed across a small road, and I've actually felt this come in a couple of times, and you can feel that back wheel working at it. I've never gone in so far that it's thrown me upright or anything like that, but you can feel the intervention. I'll open up here. You can actually feel the intervention as it comes through. So that settable and customizable electronic suite is a very good plus for this machine. In fact, I would say, now I've not written the new ones with the auto blipper down and the lean sensitive electronic controls, so I can't comment about how vast an improvement that is. But I would tell you this: if you see a good mileage BMW S1000r available as a used machine, I would only tell you to go for it, because they're reliable. They can be fixed on, worked on. Excuse me. They can be fixed and worked on, and they are still a very impressive motorcycle, and a very nice handling motorcycle. So that's it. That's kind of an update here of 2014 BMW S1000r ownership. I don't plan on moving this one anytime too soon. It's a good stablemate to the Tuono. The downside is they both are the same thing, and that is super nakeds, so-called super nakeds. So they're doing the same thing, but they're different enough in character and still so enjoyable that it's hard for me to think about letting this guy go.